Are you confident that you could come through a year plus of health detours and consider yourself now stronger and living life feeling a little bit more awake? My guest today is Pamela Benson Owens, and in a moment, she's going to share a little bit more about what she describes as a series of health challenges or detours, which I consider a really a huge understatement. And she'll also share how she navigated the challenges and how the journey of self-discovery really helped her awaken her senses to much that she really hadn't been seeing before, things that she'd been maybe missing. And so, how this has all helped her decide to live life with much more intention, and how it's also helped her shift personally and professionally to survive this strange year of chaos and change. So, join us as we dive in a little further. Okay, so I also love that today's guest, Pam, is going to share about how her mom gave some wonderful, insightful advice during her growing up. And it was truly a game changer for her and something that I think she would point to as a critical factor in the person that she is today and how she's been able to come through and achieve this level of success. So, welcome, Pam.
Thank you. Well, I'm so excited to be here, and you look bright and cheerful on this day, and love to see you and wish we could be in person, but
I do too.
we'll take it.
We'll take it. I know. I can't stand not being in person and the hug thing, because I'm a hugger. I don't know about you. Yeah. Yeah, I know. All right, let's get the good stuff. So President Pamela Benson Owens is president and CEO of Edge of Your Seat Consulting.
Yep.
And I'm going to share your website, PamelaBensonOwens.com, because I want people to find you. But you also have your own podcast called Rooted.
Yes.
So we'll have you dive into that in just a moment. I do want to make sure, because I want to dive into the personal journey that you've been on that, again, has really helped you become way more resilient. And as you talk about how more awake you are, like what the tree looks like outside and how you've discovered that you're a water person, you got to be near water. So take us back a bit. I think it was around 2014 where things started to change.
Yeah.
And how this led to a different path or a little kink in the journey you thought you were on.
I call it the great American plot twist, right? The
plot twist, yes.
And I was thinking about this, and so that was definitely a detour. But when I was thinking the other evening, I had to realize that even if I go back to 2007, where I had a really challenging birth of a first child, she came early. It was a significant plot twist, and then later had another child, 2010, was on bed rest, worked and had to use a cane for most of the pregnancy because it dislocated hips during that one. I was just thinking back to I've had a couple of those.
So not just 2014, before then, right?
Way before that.
Right.
Yeah. And so when I think back to that, I'm like, man, I've kind of had these detours over time, and maybe those were the buildup, because when I got to 2014, it was an interesting year, and started with a torn ACL and a horrible, that's the worst pain ever, and having to go through the repair of that, and then swinging into thyroid cancer. And that was about as fun as not any fun. And, after that, just navigating the post piece of that, which is all this other stuff that happens to you, trying to readjust your system. Your system is sensitive. And so I've spent the last couple of years just adjusting the hormonal piece. Your thyroid handles a lot.
Yes.
And so it handles a lot. Surprise. So sometimes I think to myself, that piece of it wasn't even the hardest part. It was the post adjustment. And what I will say to all of that is you just never know how strong you are until you have to be. It would be my first piece. And then the second piece, when I really look back on that, a lot of gifts along the way. A lot of realizing that I overfunctioned a lot in a lot of areas. And the people, even in my household, were capable of doing a whole lot more than maybe I gave them space to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that when people say your health is really important, we blow that off.
Absolutely.
But it's true.
Right. And the moment it changes, the entire world, everything shifts on its axis, everything.
The entire landscape from the ACL on shifted. And you take for granted things like being able to even get to the restroom easily, or resting without pain, or right. And so even the rehab process from the knee, then the thyroid on, has just been a series of teachable moments. And I had to really figure out, am I going to lean into everything being a stumbling block where I don't recover? Or am I going to use it as a stepping stone for something greater? And I don't remember exactly the day when I decided that. I think I just woke up to, I have to make an intentional choice to heal from everything, or I will bleed on other people. Mm-hmm. Right?
Right.
So I got really intentional about that in every phase of the detour. And so for me personally, you're not going to be able to prevent the detour from happening. I used to be of the personality that if I just planned well enough,
sure,
and was organized enough,
yep,
and ate kale,
yep,
yeah, and hydrated,
yeah,
surely,
sure,
right?
Everything's just going to fall right in line. Like it's perfect.
Yeah. Right. And so when I got the realization of that, the other part was, I kind of set my 5-year plan on fire. I was like, let me set that aflame. Mm-hmm. It actually had become a hindrance to me to have it.
Okay.
So I still have goals, but I don't become so beholden to the plan, the 2-year plan, the 5-year plan. It can rob you of your calm and your peace. So those are a couple things, but I'm still learning. I'm still a work in progress. I think you can be a masterpiece in some areas and a work in progress in others. Mm-hmm. I think those can both coexist at the same time. And I think I'm in that space a lot. Some days I'm like, oh, nailed it. And other days I'm like, I'm looking for my phone and I'm talking on it. Like, right. And so just leaning into both of those things and being okay with it.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the key critical pieces you mentioned is when you just decided, even though you don't remember the moment or the day, but your attention shifted to, all right, what's next? Like, I got this, and this didn't take me all the way out. And yes, it sucks. I don't want to go through it again, but part of the challenge, I think, is getting that big shift to that stepping stone, right? And looking forward and trying to figure out how to deal with it and going forward. And I think sometimes people, they say not making a choice is a choice, right? So if you decide not to make that pivot, you might be stuck in that other place a little bit longer, and everyone's got their own timetable. But is there anything else that you can think back to, that whether, having kids, that you really had to show up for, or was it just, who you are and your DNA that said, that was it, it's time?
I think I gave myself permission to feel all the feels. That was what was missing and absent for me. I'm big on my first application before that set of detours was just power through it, gut it out.
Yeah.
The misstep, and I look back on that and I go, oh, I built the plane wrong. The misstep was I didn't give myself permission to feel all the feels, right?
Right.
So you become numb to it.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of robotically knocking down the pins, right? Yeah. When I got to this part, something, and I guess it was because I'd held it so long in that other part of my even my personal life and professional life, when I kind of gave myself permission to decide it's going to be messy and I might feel every emotion all in the 10 seconds I'm having it, and that a meltdown is okay if you don't stay there. And all those emotions came, and I was like, man, I feel better on the other side of that versus I'm going to act like nothing's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Right. Soldier on through it.
Soldier on through. And I also realized that's such a bad example for my daughter, right?
Yeah.
And my son. It's like, I don't want them to have that because that's not real. Right. And you miss the opportunity to feel the feels, and those emotions are there for a reason, to help you feel them, not stay mired down in them, but feel them. And I really even think back to in 2008, I was traveling like 6-7 days a week. I mean, I was on the road all the time. Mm-hmm. And I remember, I mean, I can just see myself in this scenario as I'm telling the story. I packed my breast pump because I was going to be the mom.
Right.
Mail the milk back on my trips. And I'm in this airport with my colleague, and we split up, and I'm like, hey, Heidi, go get the snacks for the plane. I got to do this thing. I'll meet you at the gate. And I go through the process of, which is painful and it sucks, of like getting the milk so I can put it in this bubble wrap case and mail it when I get to DC. And I do all the work, and I put the milk, the 2 bottles on the feminine napkin.
Yes.
What do you call it? Trash can. And I turn to put the machine up and hit the milk, and it hits that nasty airport bathroom floor. It was like a slow, I was like,
oh no.
Right. And then I went, oh my gosh, I'm done. I am done trying to execute perfectly and stick the dismount. This is crazy.
Right.
And I got out of there, and I took that expensive machine and threw it in the trash and was like, done. After that, I got home. I got through that trip. I got home, and I started looking at my clients, and I said, I will need to operate differently because this is not sustainable. I can do it, but should I be doing it this way?
Right.
Not. And so I remember that also being kind of the onboarding of feeling all the feels. Like,
yeah,
you have to soldier through it every day.
Right.
You have to gut it out every day.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that was part of also how we were raised. And again, I reflect on that, and not with a negative judgment, but we were raised as strong girls, and coming into womanhood, that we, the world was our oyster, right? We could make our own way. And so we had high expectations. We set high standards. And so we were going to do it all, right? And I think what I'm surprised to find is many more women like you and myself come to this realization of, wait a minute, I don't have to be perfect, and it is going to be messy, and that's okay. And, and be okay with feeling these things.
Well, I was late to the party on having it all gets to be defined by me.
Right. Right.
Wish somebody had tapped me on the shoulder on that one. I was like, oh, I don't have to, but
right.
We are conditioned as young girls to do exactly what, it's not a surprise. We were conditioned and exposed to, this is how it's done.
Yep.
I didn't question it.
No, none of us did. Right. We just kept going. Yep.
Right. So yeah, that's definitely been interesting. When I came to that realization, I was like, I don't have to operate in the expectations of others. As a matter of fact, the expectation piece is not my piece.
Yeah.
Your expectations of me are not where I should be focused. It's my expectations of me. Mm-hmm. And then I always calibrate those.
Yeah, right. They can never change. And I love when you and I spoke before, you were saying, it's not just about reimagining your life once. It's reimagining over and over and over. And you also made some reference to, if you don't allow yourself, like if you stop that process prematurely, you don't give yourself the opportunity to be creative and more receptive in that space.
I don't think you'll ever feel freedom either.
Mm-hmm.
That's freedom. And so we stop short of it. Sometimes I think we get scared of it. It's like, oh, I'm close, so I'm not going to do it.
Right.
Or I'm not doing it the right way. But the other piece of it is, it's like, why would we think as we age that there wouldn't be different renditions of ourselves? Like it's incongruent.
Right.
To think that you're not going to outgrow, which should be exciting.
Right. It should be embraced as a positive.
Right. Like I'm going to write a new chapter.
Right.
The people that were in the last chapter might not be in this chapter. Mm-hmm. And that's not a negative.
Right.
That's an opportunity.
Yeah. And growth.
Right. Yeah. And I think we also, I was reading something the other night, and I think the idea for women specifically around self-care and growth is fictitious around bath bombs and exfoliating and right. And I'm like,
right. That'll fix all of it. It's a magic wand. Oh, yeah. Take a bath. Life's fine.
Good. Care is the hard, real work. And, if you want to be light it requires attention. Heavy's easy. Mm-hmm. Right? Especially these days. I can find a bunch of stuff to feel heavy about.
Yes.
Light has to be intentional.
Yes.
And it requires work. And when you say self-care, it's not just exfoliating and bath bombs. It's self-care around finances, mental health.
Yes. What you put in your body.
Cultivating your dreams.
Yep.
All of it. It's all of that. So I think it's really important that you think about it. And I think you have to be honest with yourself when you're out of whack and when there's an opportunity and what to do with it. And it's a gift. So I think to constantly in your reimagining, bring that into focus.
So you also share more about how you feel a lot more awake now. So in addition to living with intentionality, that you want to live in a place that is near water. So was it through raising your son that you felt a little bit more awake? Was it a result of going through the cancer? Was it all of these pieces of the puzzle kind of all come together that little by little the light kept growing bigger and bigger?
I think each of those things I've had an experience is a square on a quilt stitched together. And I think the end game is an awakening and an appreciation for what many would consider simple. And, I was just thinking as we were talking, when you talk about just even the additional challenges, having a second son, learning he has autism, having to relearn, I hadn't been a parent that long, like relearn a new approach to a child that thinks in 3D in a world that's 2D, like that piece.
Right.
That's part of the awakening too, is getting really clear on what's important. Mm-hmm. It's like, man, do I want to spend the 10, 20 seconds I have between a Zoom meeting looking at email, or do I want to go look at some wildflowers on the trail behind my house? And I usually pick that.
Yeah.
Because there is healing power and power in a pause. And so I just find like everything seems to be more vibrant. And for me, even in the morning, I have a ritual of I meditate for an hour and then I have coffee time. And even coffee has become a spiritual experience. It's like reverent. I'm like, this is amazing. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't even have to taste that good. It's just the act of being still and creating stillness before the day hits. Mm-hmm. And not to get on the hamster wheel, but just to center myself in what's important. So the awakening of that has been powerful. Having a taco on Taco Tuesday has become spiritual and an awakening. Having tea with my daughter at the end of the day, we call it tea time when there's something real important to talk about, has become spiritual and an awakening. And I think it's important to find what that is in things that are already around you. And the only way you build the courage, to me, to go after bigger adventures is to be able to take a personal vacation in your mind every day. You have
Yep.
to be able to do that to
Yep.
build the bridge to other adventures that are important to you.
Well, I loved your statement, and I agree. The power of the pause, because again, too many people are stuck on the hamster wheel and not really, and then months go by and, oh, I still didn't do this. I didn't take this vacation. I didn't do this. And so, I think of, when I'm overwhelmed, I think back, or I think about how I'll reflect on my life at the end. And it's not that I gave this wonderful business presentation, and it wasn't that, I wrote that, or I, led a wonderful Zoom meeting, right? It's going to be the tea time with your daughter and the time spent with your son and husband, and right, and those moments. So you touched also on taking the personal break during the daytime. Share the story, because I love this, about what your mom inspired you to do as you were growing up, because I think that, again, I can see a mom saying that now, but how ahead of her time was your mom in thinking this way? So share that story, because I think this is so wonderful. What a gift she gave you.
Yeah, from a generational perspective. So my mom would be in the traditional generational set.
Right.
This is unheard of, right?
Right.
And now that I'm grown, I think to myself all the time, man, my parents were ahead of their time on a couple of big things. And I think about that a lot. My brother and I talk about that a lot. But my mom, very early on, insisted on the art of being able to be alone and the art of the personal sabbatical and the personal vacation alone. And so from freshman in college on, she insisted that be implemented. And I was thinking, after I talked to you the other day, because I was looking through my journal, another pivotal way this came up is after I had my first child, 3 weeks to the day Allison came to the earth, my mom knocked on my door, walked in with her bag, said, I have booked you here. You need to roll to Fredericksburg. You're gone. Mom, I just had a baby. I've raised a couple.
Yeah, I've been there.
I'm good. You're gone. Because at that point, my husband was in graduate school at Baylor.
Oh, wow. Yes.
I was
Okay.
riding solo for a while in between.
Yeah.
And it was not, you don't negotiate with B. Benson. It was like, it wasn't a dialogue, right?
No.
It was like, it was a directive.
Yep.
So I think about those times when she's kind of like shown up and been like, here's what's about to happen. After I told you, after I got through being ill, it was, you're going to Pigeon Forge to the mountains, cabin, bye-bye. And I'll meet you later. And so I look back on that and realize, as I've tried to give that up in my adulthood, she holds the line. She's like, here's what's about to happen. And I think that was, that's a powerful gift. I've been to Graceland by myself. I've been to Chicago and I think we don't give ourselves permission to do that, because specifically for us as women, we wear busy as a badge of honor, right?
We do.
Yeah. So think about it. If I call you, Wendy, what are you doing? It's not acceptable for you to go, I'm taking good care of myself and doing nothing. I'd be like, what's wrong with you?
Right. You're right. It's a badge of honor to be overwhelmed and over busy, because that means you're productive and you're living up. Yep.
But what would happen if we were able to have sacred and safe space to say, I'm doing absolutely nothing. And you say, I am so proud. That is amazing. But we don't. As a matter of fact, a couple of years ago, I was looking at the women around me and I said, this is not attractive. I don't want to look like this. Like, we look beat down and stressed out and anxiety ridden. To what cost? Like, at what cost and to what end? So I've gotten really deliberate about working on that, going on a vacation. I told you I fly fish. So I did that for years.
Yep.
A sabbatical trip. Sometimes it's just, it's not fly fishing. It's just my rod off the side of a small lake.
Yep.
But that's another thing I love. And so I'm just not giving it up. after the second child, I started taking tap dance classes again because I wanted a way to express myself and be separate from in order to kind of keep my identity. And so I've done a variety of those things to just hold on to that. So it doesn't have to be that I'm in Italy. It could be.
Right. I agree. It doesn't have to be some super, once in a lifetime trip routine. Nope. I agree.
I do staycations right here in Austin, Texas.
Yep. Fredericksburg, Austin. I agree. Yep. Just getting out.
It's so important.
Okay. So let's pivot a little bit more. Talk about your work and how, what you talk about percolating, because how you've, again, how all of these changes in your personal life and your professional life, they were, connected, right? They're woven together. You can't separate these two identities. So how did this lead into Edge of Your Seat Consulting and then the podcast called Rooted? So talk a little bit more about that.
I love it. So Edge of Your Seat Consulting it's so funny because I started my business. It's been a long time. But I started my business, and the first consultant offerings was to coach pageant contestants to sound smart when answering final questions.
That's your first consulting gig.
That was my first gig.
Love it.
I got Coca-Cola doing leadership training, and it spun off from there. But having said that, the entire strategy around Edge of Your Seat was to provide real consulting, not cookie cutter, not pull it off the shelf, but relationship building, customized training and development and support for nonprofits and for-profits. And in doing that, what I realized is a lot of what we're talking about, especially for women executives, was manifesting itself in those boardrooms. So it became the opportunity to really get plugged into like women's leadership,
right?
How you navigate change. And so I've spent quite a bit of time there, how you address diversity and equity, a lot of executive coaching. And then, as I said to you about my spiritual connection with coffee that had been going for a while, I realized the gift of just percolating in the morning. Mm-hmm. And so I started just sharing my reflections in my private time on social media. And people started going, that's the most honest I've ever heard somebody be. I agree. I don't have the guts to say it. Or, wow, that was brave. I can't say it, but I agree. So then after a while, because I collect coffee mugs, I just started taking a picture of the coffee mug and writing a post. And then it turned into a book. Mm-hmm. So I published a book a couple years ago called Percolations. And it was like all the things that I would think in the morning that apparently people thought was wise and wisdom in this book. And then after a couple of years of that, I started picking a word of the year.
Oh, okay.
And so 3 years ago, my word was rooted and anchoring. And I remember I love trees and I love everything about the root system, and trees are art to me. And I remember my father is a big lover of trees, and in our neighborhood, in our yard, we had a garden. He would climb a tree with me, and we climbed trees together. So there's a connection there. And I went through the whole year and got to the end of the year, and I was like, I can't give the word up because I don't feel rooted. Year 2, got to the end of the year. Can't give the word. I can't pick a new word. I don't feel rooted.
Yeah.
Year 3, I don't feel rooted yet, but I'm going to by the end of this year. And I just got real reflective on what do I need to anchor myself. I want everybody to have an opportunity to get rooted. I need to talk about it. So my business coach, Kim, was like, you need to do a podcast. I'm like, no, I don't. I'm sure I don't. And she's like,
I'm sure I don't.
I'm sure you do. And so we launched it. And then I was like, oh, this is great because people can listen when they want to, when they're walking. And so that's how we got there. So the whole construct of rooted is, I just want you to get rooted in what you think and how you think it. And that's it. I want you to get curious
Yeah.
about what you think and why. That's it. And so that's how we got rooted.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, and I think you also just mentioned living curiously. That is a phrase that I learned probably about 6 or 7 months ago from another gal. And I hadn't heard that phrase, but I loved it because it's, again, without judgment and without fear of failure, because it doesn't matter if I'm the slowest one here or if I'm taking a pottery class, if it's not the prettiest piece of pottery, it doesn't matter anymore. And, one facet of life at this stage in this chapter is that I don't think at 25 or 30 we could have appreciated that enlightenment.
If somebody had said that to us at 25, we couldn't receive it.
No, we couldn't receive it. We would just blow it off. Like you said, even your health, right? It was, I'm always going to be 100% healthy. I don't have to deal with any life disturbances or detours in any way.
Exactly. And so
Yep.
I love the idea of curiosity. In the back in my office, it says, and it's right there specifically in front of me while I'm working during the day, resist the urge to turn to judgment.
Yeah.
Turn to wonder and curiosity. And many times during the day when I find myself
Yes.
sliding off the bank to judgment,
Yes.
I bring myself back. Yeah, it's like, come on back, get back in the van.
Yeah.
But that's been a game changer for me. And it's so easy for us to just kind of get mired down in our self-righteousness and ego, right?
Yep.
And I think the reason why it takes us so long to get there is if we're honest about, our paths. A lot of times I feel like when I look back on my life personally and professionally, as I work through perfectionism and all that stuff that comes, I often would send my representative to meetings, to gatherings, right?
Right.
That's exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
So now I send myself, good, bad, or indifferent. I've made peace with whatever the outcome is.
Yep.
I made peace with, I might not be for everyone.
Right.
But I'm showing up as me because the other way is ridiculously draining.
Yeah. Yes. And living authentically, again, transparently, authentically, and without judgment, because I think you're right, especially right now in our world, there's too quick to judge at first glance, right? They don't know enough about the whole situation, the person, the decision. And so just live with more wonder and curiosity and openness to a diverse opinion and like you said, discuss and question yourself. And that's how you continue to grow.
I agree with you. And first of all, we've solved all the world's problems here, Wendy, right on this.
We have. I mean, who knew in this sweet little podcast today, we were just going to get it all just taken care of.
I agree with you so much. I would also say that to your point, if we would just slow down and stop being so reactive, if we would stop doing all people do this and went to some, not all, or I don't know enough.
Right.
To make a determination. I think now what's happening is we've started dehumanizing people we disagree with.
I agree. Yep.
It's really insane.
Yeah. Or too quickly judging based on one piece of very limited information.
Exactly. In one moment.
Right. A snapshot.
Yeah. Or one chapter. It's like, okay, I met you on that chapter. It wasn't your best chapter. Now I'm going to judge you for that and not
forever.
That's it.
Yep.
It's not fair. It's not fair. And when we do that, we also perpetuate in others around us this thing that kicks on when it's like the story we start telling ourselves and then we believe it and then we don't think we can reimagine. We don't think we can write a new chapter. We don't think we can take an adventure. Right.
It's self-limiting and it's self-fulfilling then. Because then you become what you limit yourself into.
It's dangerous.
It is dangerous.
It is.
Well, Pam, all right. So I do want to wrap with a final note that's a little different because you and I, we grew up at a time after TV and movies were just taking off and women's roles were changing. So, okay, take me back to young Pamela And was there either a TV show or a movie or a book you read or something that was like really significant in your growing up? Because I just love a little bit of 80s throwback, whether it's 70s or 80s throwback. Just because it's so fun to hear what resonated with somebody that's different, for the different worlds that we grew up in.
I love this question, and I have to tell you, this is a vulnerability moment because I really like you, and I'm like, if I share this, she might.
Oh, it's gonna be good.
So I have a two-parter because I feel like this is critical.
Okay.
The first part is I have to talk about music because that was a major part of our family.
Okay.
And what I respect as a Black female growing up at that time was my parents had a very eclectic taste in music. And my father, who was a very conservative, suited every day, cut the grass in a suit kind of guy, would every couple of weeks introduce us to somebody new. And I remember the day he played Fleetwood Mac and I heard Stevie Nicks.
Oh, wow.
And I'm probably the number one fan of Fleetwood Mac.
Wow.
I've now schooled my kids, but that was a pivotal moment in my growing up because my dad would say, I need you to know that music heals and it's the great equalizer. When you can't agree on anything else, music could be helpful. So I learned James Taylor and I learned opera. I saw my first opera at the Sydney Opera House in Australia. I saw my first, play in London. Like my dad was really committed to, I'm going to have you read it in the history book and then we're going to see it.
Wow.
That's the first piece. But here is the part that you might disown me. My favorite movie, still standing, we watch it every year in this house, is Goonies.
No. I love Goonies.
Okay.
Nope. I love Goonies. Oh my gosh.
I have to remaster.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That movie has everything in it.
Yes.
And so I still watch it and quote it. And the biggest downer was when we sat down to show it to our kids and the credits rolled and they were like, yuck. No,
you missed it then. You gotta watch it again, right? No, you missed it.
It hurt. My husband's a fan too. And he was like, I don't know if we're raising them right.
That's right. You had to question everything.
Yeah. We got done and Arlen goes, I saw this going differently in my head. I'm like, me too. But that's my movie.
Well, and did Steven Spielberg do that?
Yep, in 85.
In 85. Oh my gosh. See, and that's why I love this question because even though it's, nobody's brought up Goonies. Somebody brought up Dallas the other week.
Oh, yes.
Oh my gosh. And so it's just a fun little throwback that that sometimes I forget about this show or that moment in our youth.
Our Friday night jam was Love Boat and then Fantasy Island.
Yep. Welcome to Fantasy Island. Yep.
Loved it.
Oh my gosh. That's so fabulous. Well, and I also have to give you a quick shout out. First of all, I got to go back because I have to meet your parents. Are they both with us?
They're both with us. They're 4 miles up the way and they are some spry, energetic. I'm so thankful that I've gotten to profusely thank them because I didn't know. My brother and I often talk about, we didn't know at the time.
Value of everything that they were sharing. Yes.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. I'm very blessed, and my folks are both still living. And I remember the first time I had to say to my father, "You were right about this." Like when you said that, you were right.
Yes.
But I feel very fortunate to have been raised in a loving and enlightened environment. So again, I'm hearing through all the different times in your stories that the influence that your parents gave you in this gift of being really receptive and embracing all the different paths that you were going to go down and all the different ways your life would be influenced. Right. So
yeah,
it's very
lucky, very blessed.
Okay. So I am going to just remind everybody, I will have a link to your website on my website, DestinationU.net. But it's PamelaBensonOwens.com. If for some reason you're also driving and you don't want to write all that down, again, DestinationU.net, you'll find me and Pam there. And then you'll also be able to connect with her podcast, which I hope you check out, Rooted. Very cool. And if they haven't seen Goonies, we better put that on the list of call to action as well, that they better check that out.
Absolutely not negotiable.
Non-negotiable. Exactly. Well, Pam, thanks so much for being here today. It's been awesome to have you on and to share your story.
Thank you. I enjoyed you, and you are really fabulous. What a great experience.
Great. Well, I can't wait to continue working with you, because we're going to change the way people are starting to create their bucket list. Your mom's actually is already doing it on her own too. This is awesome. So
I'm
really excited about our next chapters, and and having you more closely and with me on my chapter.
I feel like we'll be able to co-write some of those adventures together.
I'm ready.
Love it.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much again. Have a wonderful weekend. Thanks everybody for joining.